What if I told you that the most powerful, most liberating tool you will ever possess is already inside you, waiting not to be discovered, but to be unleashed? What if the walls you feel, the limits you perceive, are not made of stone, but of thought? And what if, just for a moment, you could dissolve them? Hello and welcome. Before we dive deep into the very fabric of our creative potential, if you believe in the power of ideas and the expansion of the human mind, please take a second to hit that like button. Share this with someone whose mind you admire, and subscribe for more content that challenges the conventional. Your support allows us to keep exploring these vast inner worlds together. Now, let's begin. Let's talk about the mind, not the brain, the 3-pound organ of synapses and neurons, but the mind, the intangible, luminous space where ideas are born, where reality is perceived, and where universes can be created and destroyed in an instant. We often picture as a room, a library, a container. We talk about filling our minds with knowledge, storing memories, organizing our thoughts. But this very metaphor, this image of container, is the first border we unknowingly erect. A container, by its very nature, has walls. It has a finite capacity. It separates what is inside from what is outside. The creative mind, the mind that truly knows no limits, does not operate like a container. It operates like an ocean. It is not defined by its boundaries, for its shores are constantly shifting. It is defined by its depth, its currents, its vast, interconnected ecosystem of thought, and its ability to touch every continent of knowledge without being confined by any single one. Thinking without borders is not about thinking outside the box. It is about realizing there is no box. This realization is perhaps the most profound shift a person can make. We are conditioned from our earliest days to see borders everywhere. The lines in a coloring book, the correct answer in a multiple-choice test, the curriculum divided into subjects, math here, history there, art in a separate room, as if they are not all just different languages telling the same epic story of human experience. We are taught to categorize, to label, to define. A thing is either this or it is that. A person is a doctor or a painter or an engineer. We create these neat, tidy boxes because they give us a sense of order and predictability in a chaotic universe. They make the world feel manageable. But in our quest for manageability, we sacrifice the magnificent, untamed wilderness of possibility. The creative mind resists this simplification. It thrives in the messy, the ambiguous, the interconnected. It sees the mathematics in music, the poetry in physics, the biology in architecture. It understands that a label is a starting point for inquiry, not an end point for understanding. Consider the nature of a border. It is an artificial line drawn across a continuous landscape. On a map, a bold line separates one country from another. But if you were to stand on that line on the ground, what would you see? A river, a mountain range, or perhaps nothing at all, just the same earth stretching in both directions. The border is an idea, an agreement, a construct of the mind. Our mental borders are exactly the same. The line between logical and intuitive, between possible and impossible, between work and play. These are not fundamental laws of the universe. They are cultural and personal agreements we've made, habits of thought we've inherited. The truly creative act begins with a form of gentle rebellion, the refusal to honor these imaginary lines. It is a courage to wander off the marked trail, to mix colors that shouldn't go together, to ask a question so fundamental that everyone else has forgotten it needs to be asked. This process begins with curiosity, not a casual, fleeting interest, but a deep, driving, insatiable curiosity. A curiosity that is not afraid to look foolish. A child asks, "Why is the sky blue?" and is given a simplified answer about scattering light. They might then ask, "But why does light scatter? And then what is light? And what is a sky?" A child's curiosity has no preconceived borders of discipline. They are a physicist, a poet, and a philosopher all in one question. As we grow, we are taught that some questions are silly, some are irrelevant, and some are simply not our department. We learn to curb our curiosity to fit within the acceptable channels of our profession or social circle. The borderless mind actively works to dismantle this conditioning. It nurtures a state of what Zen Buddhists call shoshin, or beginner's mind, The beginner's mind is empty of preconceptions and expectations. The expert's mind is full. The expert knows all the reasons something cannot be done. The beginner, blissfully unaware of the impossibility, just might do it. The beginner's mind is not burdened by the weight of past successes or failures. It is light, agile, and open to everything. It approaches an old problem as if for the very first time, allowing for the emergence of solutions that the expert view might have long since dismissed. This state of openness is not passive. It is an active state of observation. Most of us go through our days looking, but not truly seeing. We see a tree, and our brain quickly labels it tree and moves on, conserving energy. We have seen thousands of trees. This one is just another instance of the category. The borderless mind, however, observes. It might notice the precise shade of green, how the light filters through the leaves, the texture of the bark, the way the branches form a pattern that echoes the veins of a leaf or the deltas of a river. It engages all the senses. It doesn't just see the tree. It hears the rustle of its leaves, smells the damp earth at its roots, feels the roughness of its skin. This deep, sensory immersion is the raw material of creativity. An idea is not conjured from a vacuum. It is a new combination of existing elements. The richer and more varied your sensory and intellectual input, the more elements your mind has to play with. You cannot connect the dots if you have not first collected the dots. And you collect the dots by paying radical attention to the world, by treating the mundane as if it were miraculous. For in truth, it is. This brings us to the core mechanism of creative thought. Synthesis, the ability to connect the seemingly unconnected. Arthur Kessler called this by association, the act of perceiving a situation or idea in two self-consistent but habitually incompatible frames of reference. It's the moment when two separate streams of thought, flowing in parallel for years, suddenly merge. Johannes Gutenberg combined the mechanics of a wine press with the concept of a coin punch to create the printing press. Steve Jobs, after dropping out of college, famously audited a calligraphy class. At the time, it had no practical application in his life. It was a pursuit born of pure aesthetic curiosity. A decade later, while designing the first Macintosh computer, that knowledge of typography, of serifs and sans serifs, a proportional spacing resurfaced. He connected the art of beautiful handwriting to the digital interface, and in doing so, revolutionized personal computing. Had he stayed within the borders of engineering and business, the personal computer might have remained a tool of cold, monospace functionality. By allowing the useless knowledge of art to cross-pollinate with the useful knowledge of technology, he created something new and deeply human. This is the magic that happens when you dissolve the borders between disciplines. A biologist studying the spiral patterns of a seashell might find an insight that helps an architect design a more stable staircase. A musician studying rhythmic patterns might inspire a data scientist to find new ways of visualizing complex data sets. The universe does not respect our academic departments. A fractal pattern is a fractal pattern, whether it appears in a snowflake, a coastline, or the stock market. A wave is a wave, whether it is made of water, sound, or light. The borderless mind is a pattern seeker, a bridge builder between islands of knowledge. It actively reads, watches, and listens outside its own area of expertise. It talks to people from different walks of life. It understands that the next great breakthrough in its field might not come from a leading journal in that field, but from a chance encounter with an idea from a completely different domain. It is an act of intellectual humility, an admission that one's own field does not hold all the answers. But this process of connection is often hindered by our greatest and most pervasive border, the fear of being wrong. From a young age, we are penalized for mistakes. The red X on a school paper, the social embarrassment of a wrong answer. We learn that failure is an endpoint, a verdict on our intelligence or ability. This belief creates a powerful and paralyzing border around our willingness to experiment. If the cost of being wrong is shame and penalty, then we will stick to the safe, the known, the proven. We will walk the well-trodden path and never risk venturing into the forest where new discoveries lie. The creative mind, however, must fundamentally reframe its relationship with failure. It must see failure not as a verdict, but as data. It is simply an outcome. An experiment that doesn't yield the expected result has not failed. It has successfully shown you what doesn't work, which is just as valuable as knowing what does. Thomas Edison, in his search for a viable filament for the light bulb, famously tested thousands of materials. He was quoted as saying, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This is not just a clever reframing. It is a fundamental mindset of innovation. It is a scientific method applied to all of life. Form a hypothesis, an idea, conduct an experiment, try it out, analyze the data, see what happened, and then form a new hypothesis. There is no judgment in this cycle, only learning. To truly embrace this, we must cultivate a space for play. Play is the natural antidote to the fear of failure. When we are playing, the stakes are low. We are not trying to be productive or efficient. We are simply exploring, testing, and delighting in the process itself. A child building with blocks is not worried about architectural integrity. They are exploring gravity, balance, and form. If the tower falls, they don't see it as a failure. They laugh and start again, perhaps trying a different configuration. Play allows us to experiment freely, to make mistakes without consequence, to follow absurd lines of thought just to see where they lead. This is why so many innovative companies encourage playful environments or set aside time for passion projects. They understand that the relaxed, open, non-judgmental state of mind that occurs during play is precisely the state in which bisociation, the connection of disparate ideas, is most likely to happen. The border between work and play is one of the most stultifying we have created. The most profound and creative work often feels like play to the person doing it. Einstein referred to his own thought processes as combinatory play. The joy, the intrinsic motivation, the absorption in the activity itself. This is the fuel of the limitless mind. This absorption leads to another crucial aspect of thinking without borders, the ability to embrace ambiguity and paradox. The bordered mind craves certainty. It wants clear answers, black and white distinctions. It is uncomfortable in the gray areas. But the gray area is where creativity lives. The poet John Keats called this quality negative capability, which he described as the ability of a person to be in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. It is a capacity to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and not feel compelled to immediately choose one over the other. Can something be both beautiful and grotesque, both simple and complex, both tragic and comical? Yes, the world is full of such paradoxes. The quantum physicist lives in this state, accepting that a particle can be both a particle and a wave simultaneously, a concept that defies our everyday logic. The innovator holds a paradox of the current reality, what is, and the future vision, what could be, in their mind at once, without letting the weight of the present crush the potential of the future. Resisting the urge for premature closure, for a quick and easy answer, allows a problem to marinate. It gives the subconscious mind time to work, to sift through those vast stores of collected dots, to find a novel connection that the conscious, logical mind might have missed in its rush for a solution. This brings us to the mysterious and powerful dialogue between the conscious and subconscious mind. We have all had the experience of struggling with a problem, focusing on it with all our conscious might, only to get stuck. We hit a wall. Then we give up for a while. We go for a walk, take a shower, drift off to sleep, and then, seemingly out of nowhere, the answer appears. A flash of insight, so clear and obvious that we wonder why we didn't see it before. This is not magic. This is the borderless mind at work. The conscious mind, with its focused, analytical thinking, is excellent for defining a problem, gathering information, and executing a plan. But its very focus can create tunnel vision. It can get stuck in a loop, trying the same failed approaches over and over. When you step away, when you relax your conscious grip, you allow the subconscious to take over. The subconscious mind is a vast, associative network. It doesn't think in a linear, logical fashion. It thinks in images and feelings and connections. It works in the background, making millions of silent connections between the problem you fed it and everything else you have ever experienced, learned, or felt. The aha moment is the moment the subconscious finds a significant connection and pushes it up into conscious awareness. Therefore, thinking without borders means respecting and deliberately cultivating this process. It means understanding that periods of intense focus must be balanced with periods of unfocused incubation. It means that daydreaming is not a waste of time. Staring out the window is not laziness. Going for a long, aimless walk is not procrastination. These are essential parts of the creative cycle. They are the moments when you are handing the problem over to your more powerful, associative mind. You are, in effect, opening the borders between different modes of thought. You are allowing the logical mind to rest while the intuitive mind plays. To neglect this phase is to try to build a magnificent structure using only one type of tool. It's like a farmer who only sows seeds but never allows the land to lie fallow to regenerate. The quiet, the empty, the unproductive moments are where the soil of the mind regains its fertility. Another subtle but powerful border we must dissolve is the one between ourself and our ideas. We often become so attached to our own ideas that we see any criticism of them as a personal attack. Our ego gets entangled with our output. When someone challenges our idea, we become defensive. Our mind closes. We stop listening and start preparing our rebuttal. This fusion of self and idea is a formidable barrier to creative growth. A truly borderless mind practices a form of detachment. It sees its ideas as separate entities, as objects to be examined, tested, and improved. It can put an idea on the table and invite others to poke it, stretch it, and even try to break it. The goal is not to prove that the idea was right all along, but to collectively discover the best possible version of the idea, or to realize that it needs to be discarded in favor of a better one. This requires intellectual courage and a low ego. It is the understanding that I am not my idea. If my idea is flawed, it does not mean I am flawed. This separation allows for radical collaboration. It allows you to build on the ideas of others and for others to build on yours, creating a collective intelligence far greater than any single mind. It replaces the adversarial model of debate with a collaborative model of discovery. To think without borders is also to think across time. Our minds are often trapped in the immediate present. We are driven by short-term goals, quarterly reports, and instant gratification. The creative mind, however, can zoom out. It can see the long arc of history and project itself into distant futures. It learns from the patterns of the past, not just the facts and dates, but the recurring human dramas, the cycles of innovation and resistance, the timeless questions of meaning and purpose. By understanding the deep past, it is better equipped to imagine a radically different future. It engages in speculative thought, asking what if? What if energy were free? What if we could communicate telepathically? What if our social structures were based on empathy instead of competition? These are not idle fantasies. They are powerful thought experiments that stretch the boundaries of the possible. By envisioning a desirable future, we create a target to aim for. We begin to see the path from the present to that future. Most of the technologies and social structures we take for granted today began as a what if in a borderless mind decades or centuries ago. Thinking across time frees us from the tyranny of the immediate and connects us to the grand, unfolding story of human potential. Furthermore, we must address the border of language. Language is our primary tool for thought, but it can also be a cage. The words we use shape our reality. If we don't have a word for a concept or an emotion, it is much harder for us to perceive or experience it. The Inuit have many words for snow, allowing them to perceive distinctions that a person from the tropics simply cannot see. By naming something, we give it form, but we also limit it. The word tree is not the tree. It is a simple, low-resolution symbol for a complex, living entity. The creative mind is aware of the limitations of language. It plays with words, invents new ones, uses metaphor and poetry to express what literal language cannot. It tries to get back to the raw experience before the label is applied. It understands that by changing our language, we can change our thinking. For instance, shifting from the language of problems to the language of challenges or opportunities can fundamentally alter our approach. Shifting from I have to do this to I get to do this changes our entire emotional relationship with a task. The borderless mind is a linguistic artist, constantly refining its most fundamental tool to better map the territory of reality and imagination. This leads to the ultimate dissolution of borders, the one between the inner world and the outer world. We tend to see ourselves as separate observers looking out at an objective world. But quantum physics and ancient contemplative traditions alike suggest that this separation is an illusion. The observer affects the observed. Our consciousness is not separate from the universe. It is a part of the universe that has become self-aware. Our thoughts, our focus, our intentions are not just passive reflections of the world. They are active forces that shape our perception of it, and in turn, our actions within it. The creative mind understands this profound interconnectedness. It doesn't see itself as an isolated agent acting upon the world, but as a nexus, a point of co-creation with the world. Inspiration is not something that comes to you from the outside. It is a resonance between your prepared mind and the patterns of the universe. An idea is not something you own. It is something that flows through you when you adopt this perspective. Creativity ceases to be a struggle, a desperate effort to come up with something new. Instead, it becomes a process of listening, of attuning yourself to the subtle signals and patterns that are already present. It's like tuning a radio. The music is already in the airwaves. You simply need to adjust your receiver to the right frequency. This tuning involves all the practices we have discussed. Cultivating curiosity, observing deeply, embracing ambiguity, playing freely, and connecting disparate knowledge. It is a way of being, not just a way of doing. It is a continuous dance between input and output, between absorbing the world and expressing a new synthesis back into it. This mind, this ocean of potential, is your birthright. It is not reserved for a select few geniuses. The brains of people like Da Vinci, Curie, or Einstein were not fundamentally different from our own. What was different was how they used them. They refused to be confined. Da Vinci was as much an engineer as he was a painter. Marie Curie was a physicist and a chemist who crossed the established boundaries of both. They were polymaths, not because they had more time, but because their curiosity did not respect the borders that society had erected. They demonstrated that the human mind is naturally holistic, naturally associative, and naturally creative. The limitations we experience are not inherent to the hardware. They are programmed into the software by our culture, our education, and our own habits of thought. To think without borders is to engage in a lifelong process of deprogramming. It is to constantly question your own assumptions. When you think that's impossible, ask yourself, why, specifically, what law of physics or logic does it violate? Or is it merely violating a convention, a habit, a comfortable belief? When you find yourself in a disagreement, ask, what is the valid point in the other person's perspective? Instead of, how can I win this argument? When you feel bored, ask, what am I failing to see? What wonder is hidden in this mundane moment if I only look closer? It is a constant, gentle turning of the mind back towards openness, back toward wonder. It is not an easy path, for the world will constantly try to put you back in a box. It is more comfortable for others if you are predictable, if you're easily labeled. A mind without borders can be unsettling to a world that thrives on them. It challenges the status quo. It asks uncomfortable questions. It proposes solutions that seem outlandish at first. But it is precisely these minds that move humanity forward. Every significant leap in science, art, and social justice has come from someone who dared to erase a line, to connect two previously separate worlds, to imagine a reality that did not yet exist. This is not a destination you arrive at. There is no certificate for a borderless thinker. It is a practice, a moment-to-moment choice. It is the choice to be more interested than certain, the choice to be more playful than perfect, the choice to see connections instead of divisions, the choice to view failure as a teacher, not a judge, and the choice to treat your own mind not as a fortified castle to be defended, but as an open harbor, welcoming ships from every land, laden with every conceivable treasure of thought and experience. It is the understanding that the only true limit to your creative potential is the belief that limits exist. The canvas is infinite. The palette of colors is endless. The only question is, are you willing to pick up the brush and paint beyond the edges? The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. To think without borders is to tend to that fire, to give it the air of curiosity and the fuel of diverse knowledge, and let its light illuminate not just your own world, but the world for all of us. Thank you for spending this time with us, for venturing into this limitless space. If these ideas resonated with you, if they spark something in your own mind, please help us spread this message. Like this video, Share with friends, family, or colleagues who you think would appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future explorations. Your engagement is the wind in our sails. Go forth and think without borders.